What up, everyone? Happy Thursday. I almost said Friday, but it's not quite Friday yet. It is indeed Thursday. Yasmin loves the new Rumble series. Yeah, we just finished part 3 last night of The Greatest Story Never Told on my new Rumble series, Something Controversial. If you guys want to find the replay of that or join us, do make sure you are subscribed to my Rumble channel, which is rumble.com/Carlin. And it is exclusively on Rumble. I'm also doing it on Kick as well. I'm experimenting with streaming on Kick, and we're gonna see how that goes. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if my stuff is really like right for Kick, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see. You know, nothing wrong with doing an experiment. Hey, thanks for that super chat to kick us off for today, Yasmin. Thank you so much. Well, guys, it is an exciting weekend. It is an exciting weekend because we have reached that time of year again. And I don't know why this isn't showing on the screen. Hang on. It is an exciting time of year because this weekend is the Socialism 2024 conference. Now, as you may have noticed, I am not in Chicago. I am streaming in my bedroom. Well, my second bedroom. My second bedroom that I've appropriated into an office because I don't have kids and so I can do that stuff. I'm not in Chicago. I'm not sneaking off to Chicago. I'm sure the organizers of the Socialism Conference are very worried because they thought they preemptively banned me last year and then I snuck in anyway. And I dressed as a non-binary person and I wore a chest binder and everything. And I recorded them in person. And I sat through that entire conference in person by myself last year. But I'm not doing that this year. This year I'm hanging back. You know, no need to poke the bear too much. I'm giving them a year off. Who knows if I'll show up next year or not. But what we will be doing this year is we will be streaming the live sessions from the Socialism Conference because, yes, Joseph, yes, last year I wore a chest binder for all of you. I literally bound my boobs as tightly as I possibly could to appear like a non-binary trans queer person to go to the Socialism Conference. I did. These are the sacrifices that I make for you guys. Yep. It was the most epic of infiltrations. It was awesome. I have to say, it really, I was very, very proud of myself for that. And it was one of those things where it was like, I knew it was like, you there are those times where you like have one chance to shoot your shot. And I was like, I shot my shot and I fucking nailed it. And I recorded the president of the American Library Association saying that libraries should be sites of Marxist organizing. I did not dye my hair pink. I dyed my hair blue. My hair was blue, a very dark shade of like blue purple for like months after that. I sacrificed my hair. I got new socialist. These glasses that people make fun of me for wearing, these glasses that I actually do kind of like from an ironic perspective. I bought these glasses specifically for the Socialism Conference. These are socialist glasses. And I never wore them publicly before the conference because I was like, you know what the ultimate disguise is? When people are expecting you to be wearing one type of glasses and you show up in another type of glasses and all of a sudden they can't recognize you. And I had dyed my hair. I was wearing it in a different style. I was wearing it blue. I was wearing a chest binder. I was wearing clothes that were specific to the motif of socialism. I went all out for this, man. I really did. I made myself look as frumpy as possible to come across as a queer person. You know? Where did you get your PhD in surface level cookie cutter cons? Oh, Matthew. Matthew's going to get banned, but Matthew. For those of you who don't know, I have watched more socialist training than anyone in the world live on the internet over the past 3 years. I have watched thousands and thousands of hours of socialism training. And I find it kind of bizarre when assholes like Matthew come into my chat, and I know exactly where Matthew's coming from because it's coming from one specific corner of the internet. I find it funny when assholes like Matthew are coming into the chat, and Matthew isn't able to describe socialism. Matthew has no idea. Matthew's coming from the dissident right, and he's just doing this to be an asshole on the internet, and he's trying to cause problems. But Matthew has never committed to something in his life the way that I've committed to understanding the far left. Matthew sits in his mom's basement and dreams of maybe someday being in the vicinity of a girl and wishes his dick was much, much larger than what his dick obviously is. Because this is all Matthew knows how to do on the internet. All Matthew knows how to do on the internet is come and cause problems. Whereas we don't put up with that shit here. Matthew, I'm very sorry. You're not smart enough to be here, bro. You're not smart enough to be here. Goodbye. Anyway, for the boobs, hey, thanks, Nick. I do appreciate the super chat for the boobs. God, chest binders suck. My boobs aren't even that big. Chest binders suck. It is like the most uncomfortable thing. Anyway, I'm not going to go too off on that. We have got a big weekend ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen, because I will be streaming the Socialism 2024 conference all weekend long. Carlin penetrates socialism deeper than Matthew could ever penetrate a woman. It's true. My dick is bigger than any of these little trolls on the internet, and it's not even fucking close, and I don't even have one in real life, but my figurative cock is bigger than any of these little trolls on the internet could ever dare dream. I will put myself in situations when they're hiding behind their anonymous accounts in their mom's basement. I actually go out into the real world and I put myself in very dangerous situations just for you guys. Yeah, okay, that was pretty good. Thank you for that super chat. That was pretty good. But guys, if you want to know what it's like to go undercover at a socialism conference, you will be getting that chance this weekend. If you head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, let me just pop the link in the chat. Head over to this post, streaming the Socialism 2024 conference all weekend long, and you will find a schedule of what we're doing. We are starting on Friday, tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're not going to be doing happy hour tomorrow. We're going to forego happy hour. We're going to start a little bit later because the Socialism conference doesn't start until later. So I don't want to do back to back. So we're going to start a little bit later. We're going to do the Socialism conference when they start their live keynote at 8:30 Eastern Time tomorrow. I'm probably going to start a little bit earlier than that. So let's just say 8 o'clock. And then we're going to stream that tomorrow night. And then literally all weekend long, we're starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. We are going until 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, there are going to be breaks. So the first session goes from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And then there's a break. 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., little break. 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., longer break. 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., that's our day one. And then day two, we're starting at 11 a.m. again to 12:30. Then we got a little tiny break, 1 p.m. to 2:30, little tiny break. Well, a little bit of a longer break. 4 p.m. to 5:30, little break. 6 p.m. to 7:30. And then following the event, we will be doing movie night in my supporter Discord at 8 p.m. on Sunday, where I will be hosting a rare movie night. I never get to host movie night. It's my Discord, and I never get to host movie night. And finally, and at long last, we are watching a movie that I want to watch, which is I feel like this is a decompression movie. We will have spent an entire weekend watching Socialism, and I just thought we would watch something light. I thought we would watch something fun. I thought we would watch something uplifting. That's why we're watching A Clockwork Orange on Sunday at 8 p.m. If you've never seen A Clockwork Orange, then you need to come and see it. Obviously, it is one of the greatest movies of all time. There's even an eye. Yep, there's an eye on the movie poster. Yes, there is. Yep. And so this is going to be our decompression movie after a full weekend of socialism. But the way that you get invited to that is you have to become a supporter on my Substack. Now, going along with the streaming of the Socialism Conference, I am holding a membership drive over the next 4 days. How many people here are? Let me get a show of hands. How many people in the chat are current paying members of my Substack? $8 a month or $80 a year. How many of you are current paying supporters on my Substack? I guess if you don't want to be like, I guess you could, if you don't want to share that information, I guess that's fine. I'm honestly just curious because I actually don't know. How many people in the chat are currently paying supporters on the Substack? Janet is, Bot is, Reagan is. Mass Genocide you just did last night. Okay, we're going to count you, Mass Genocide. You just signed up last night. Judy is, Jay Coney, Fender Bean is, DT is, Bad Cat, Vince, LK, Kristen, Marianne, Everyday Therapist, Nick, Studio, Here to Learn, Angel. So got a lot of current members on the Substack. Guys, I would love it. That's okay, Grant. You just got here. That's all right. That's okay, bro. You just got here. Julie is. Hey, Mike, this is gonna be a great time for you to get on the Substack. Green-eyed lady is considering it. Josh is. Mass Genocide did the whole year. Thank you guys so much. You paid for a year. Awesome. Here's the thing. Because I'm going to be streaming socialism all weekend long, I would really like to do a nice little membership drive on the Substack to kind of get my numbers up because I haven't really been pushing Substack subscriptions. I've been talking about other stuff, but the fact of the matter is that Substack is the thing that funds the work I do. It is where I bring in the vast majority of my revenue. And the cool thing about Substack for me is that it's monthly or annual revenue. So I can plan for it. If someone signs up as an annual member, I know how much income I have coming in. If someone signs up as a monthly member, I know know how much income I have coming in, so I don't have to just rely on super chats. I don't have to rely on advertising revenue. I don't have to do boring, stupid ad reads for gold or coffee or any of these things. Yeah, I sell t-shirts and stuff because I think my t-shirts are cool, but like, I don't have to do all the other shilly shit that other people do because people are paying supporters on the Substack. And that is what funds my work. And that is what allows me to keep going. So in conjunction with doing the Socialism Conference this weekend, I would like to do a little bit of a membership drive. Media over on Rumble. I do look at Rumble. Thank you for your support on the Substack. I do see you over there as well. I would really love to get 100 new members on the Substack this weekend, either a monthly member or an annual member. Now, we're going to count Mass Genocide because she just signed up last night. So every membership that comes in from last night through this weekend is going to count towards this goal. And I don't know, maybe, and if we hit that goal, I'm going to do something to celebrate. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know what that thing is yet. But I promise if we hit that goal, I will do something fun to celebrate. So that's what we're going to be doing. Maybe I will make new sticker designs for the store, Janet. That's maybe what I'll do to celebrate. No, I don't have those stickers done yet, but I promise that I will. I promise that I will. Yep, 99 more members to go. Just 99 more members to go. Yep, we have t-shirts in pet-friendly colors now. We're going to look at that t-shirt in a second, Judy. I really do appreciate it. Can we track membership at the bottom of the screen? Yes, we can. Yes. The easy answer is yes. We can do that as well. I'll have to set that up, but we can do that as well. So guys, if you have been waiting to sign up as a member of my Substack, now is a great time. You're going to help me hit that goal. You guys help keep me in business. I literally cannot do this without your support. And so I really do appreciate it. And also, guys, part of the reason that I ask people to become members of the Substack is I really, really, really want to be able to keep my content free for everyone. The vast, excuse me, the vast majority of my, goddamn, you cough once and it's all over. The vast majority of the content on my Substack, everything from the re-education series that I'm working on to just like new articles like this explaining why Kamala Harris's stepdaughter is queer, to the podcast that I do. Almost everything, not 100% of things, but almost everything is free on my Substack because I want to make as much of my content free and available to the public as possible. There was a time on my Substack where I locked that stuff down behind a paywall and you had to become a member to get access to this content. But my great hope, honestly, is that I do want to make this content available for everyone because the whole point of doing this is to teach people and have people learn. And so when you support my work on Substack without me having to beg and plead, you help me keep the content free for everyone, and I really do appreciate it. Can you gift members on the Substack? Yes, you can. Actually, if you go to the Unwoke Roundup email, this is probably the best place to look at it. You can give a gift subscription to someone specific. You can also donate subscriptions. You can also head over to my website, which is activelyunwoke.com/support. You can make donations on there, but we're not doing that right now. We're not doing separate. Well, okay, I'm not going to say no to money, but I would really like, if you're making a donation, make it through the Substack. That way my numbers go up on Substack. And that way I know how much I can rely on. So I really would appreciate it. Senra says, I can't get back in my Rumble or figure. Well, you are in your Rumble. You are in your Rumble. I got you. I see you over there. You're doing good. Anyway, guys, so I would love to hit that goal this weekend. If you guys can help me do that, I would really, really, really appreciate it. And in return, I will be streaming the Socialism Conference live for you all weekend. If you want to peruse the schedule for the conference to see what it is and plan your weekend around a schedule of socialism, make sure you have enough beer in the fridge and snacks and stuff like that. Then you can see that on there. And again, if you become a member this weekend, you will receive an invitation link to join my supporter Discord, where we will be decompressing on Sunday with a nice viewing of A Clockwork Orange. Isn't that going to be great? Other ways you can support the work I'm doing are by heading over to the Unwoke Art store. That's unwokeart.com, where I have these new designs that I just launched. And actually, people have been sending in pictures of their merch. This is actually an old one. This is the All Tears Are Tasty tumbler. I've actually got that tumbler as well. It's what I'm drinking out of. That is my answer to the Daily Wire tumbler. You can currently get the All Tears Are Tasty Tumblr on the Substack. But then we've got some newer stuff. We've got this one from Jan. Jan got the Marilyn Monroe Whiteness Means Capitalism mug. Doesn't that look cool? Come on. You can find that in the store just by going to view all. And I think it's a couple pages in. You can get mugs of all the designs. I also saw the Whiteness Means Capitalism mug yesterday on a Zoom call. It looks so cool. Anytime you guys get merch out of my store, please send me pictures. I love seeing the pictures. We've also got Judy's pet-friendly shirts. I don't like doing shirts in lighter colors because I don't wear them, and I think black just looks good on everything, and black makes colors pop. But Judy was like, Carlin, I have cats and I get cat hair all over things. Can you please, for the love of God, make some shirts in lighter colors? And I was like, sure I can. So that's the Socialist Always Lie design that you can also get in the store. Hang on. There it is right there. You can get it on black, but all of these designs come in different colors. So you can see how they look in your color of choice. And there it is in cement. And there it is in real life. And so those are just some of the things you can get in the Unwoke Art Store if you want some sweet, sweet swag. And of course, I really do appreciate it. Guys, also make sure you are following me on Rumble. It's rumble.com/Carlin. I'm also now streaming on Kick at kick.com/Carlin B. So you can follow me over there. I'm trying to get 75 followers so I can turn on monetization. And if you want notifications when I go live, then make sure you follow the Telegram channel or whatever, and I will send out notifications when I go live. Anyway, let's get right into it. Let's get into it. Ian Miles Chung, who is oh yeah, I will be ending the show a little bit early today because I want to go listen to Nick Fuentes on No Holds Barred. So we got about an hour. But that should actually be enough to get through what I want to get through, so that's cool. Yeah, I can't troubleshoot Kick for you. You got to troubleshoot Kick on your own. I cannot fix Kick. So I don't know what to say about that. So Ian Miles Chung posted this picture today. Ian Miles Chung said, "This is a trans activist. What do you notice about her?" Pop quiz for the chat. Is this a trans activist? This person has a sign that says not gay with an anarchist symbol as in happy, but queer with a communist symbol as in defund the police, abolish capitalism, and protect trans kids. Is this a trans activist? No, Ian Miles Chung. No. Yeah, he's an idiot. Yup. Ian Miles Chung is a moron. It's not a trans activist, Ian Miles Chung. That is a queer activist. Nope, not a trans activist. Not trans. Queer activist. That's a queer socialist. Nope, not a trans activist. Queer, not trans. Queer Marxist. Exactly. That's a socialist. The sign says queer right on it with a communism symbol. Not trans, queer. See, my chat is the smartest chat on the internet. Yeah, Ian Miles Chung is a retard, and he confuses trans and queer, right? Literally have a queer sign. Literally has a queer sign. And that's basically what I said when I posted this on Twitter. I was like, you moron. That's not a trans activist. That is a queer Marxist. And that made me think of something I've been wanting to do for a while, which is there's this YouTube channel called Revolutionary Audiobooks. And they have this whole series called Queering Anarchism. So you see, they've got this one here. This is all within the last year. Queer meets anarchism. Anarchism meets queer. Gay marriage and queer love. De-essentializing anarchist feminism. Police at the borders. Gender sabotage. Anarchy without opposition. Letters from Queertopia. So they've got a whole series of this stuff. Now, who wants to explain what gain of function Marxism is? Who in my chat is extra smart today and can explain to the class what gain of function Marxism is and what that has to do with that queer activist that we just saw? Does anyone want to take a stab at it? Does one brave soul want to take a stab at it? What is gain of function Marxism? It's where queer Marxism co-opted socialism. I'm not sure I would agree fully with that explanation, but you're on the right track. You're on the right track. Anyone else got an explanation? Is it like reproduction through socialist education? Nope, not exactly. Not exactly. Mike, I love it when people admit they don't know. It takes a strong person to admit that they don't know. But guess what, guys? There's things that we don't know. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. It's the way it goes. Liquid marble, gain of function Marxism is when queer theory hijacked Marxism, Maoism, Leninism. That's getting closer. It's Marxism that's been infected with queer anarchists. Ooh, I like the way you said that. I like the way you said that. The bat fucked the pig. Exactly. The bat fucked the pig. And when the bat fucked the pig, it took the pure Marxism, Maoism, Marcuse, whatever philosopher that starts with M. It took Marxism in its pure form and it mutated it into another strain. The reason that we call this gain of function Marxism is, and by the way, no one else is talking about this. James Lindsay has never fucking talked about this. James Lindsay has no idea this even exists. Is when you get into socialist circles and you actually listen to real far left activists, they talk about a queer anarchist subculture. And so several months ago now, and I got to give Stony Baloney Human Centipede a shout out for this because he's the one that really started ringing the bell on this one. And then I just kind of started looking at it. And this is a topic I'd like to get much more in depth on. I've always had intentions on getting much more in depth on it because I think that this is really the key to the kingdom. Honestly, here's the deal. Here's what happened. What the mistake that James Lindsay and conservative influencers make is they're talking about philosophy written by dead people from 100 years ago, 50 years ago. I mean, like 150 years ago. Like Marx and Engels that stuff is really fucking old. They're talking about Marxism in its pure form. They're talking about Marxism as adopted by Mao. They're talking about Marcuse. They're talking about all of these philosophers that wrote these papers a long ass time ago. And they're saying these papers that were written a long ass time ago are what's happening in the world today. But that's not true. That's not true. Reading philosophy papers written by dead people is not it does not directly translate to what is happening in the real world today decades after those papers were written. What happened is you are perfectly capable of going over to the Substack and reading it yourself. You are literally a member on my Substack. Go to the Substack and read the article. What happened is that, and I think this started happening in the late 80s, there was a queer anarchist subculture, a queer anarcho-communist subculture that mutated out of the punk scene. And that queer anarcho-communist subculture started publishing zines. They started publishing communiques. They started publishing papers that were really only read by other people in this queer anarchist subculture. There were a whole bunch of these groups that started springing up in the 90s. And they wrote these papers that you can now find in the anarchist library and on different anarchist websites. And those papers that were written in the late 80s and the early 90s, this is the most hardcore leftist content that you're going to find anywhere. We started dabbling in it. We've already read a whole bunch of them on my Substack. We've done streams about it, stuff like that. What happened is there was a mutation based entirely on this queer anarchist literature, where you're taking the pure philosophy from Marx, Mao, Marcuse, all those people, and basically the bat that is queer anarchism fucked the pig, which is Marxism and Maoism, and it mutated off into a different strand. What we are dealing with in the real world today is a mutated strand of Marxism that is heavily influenced by queer anarchist subculture. And so and this is the literature that is influencing the college protesters. This is the literature that the college students that you're seeing on the streets today, that they literally grew up reading. This is what they read in their free time. This is who their friends are. And we know this because we hear them parrot the language. They literally directly quote the language. So what we are dealing with today, we've dubbed it gain-of-function Marxism. It is not pure Marxism that you're going to read in the philosophy. It is a mutated strain of Marxism that is heavily influenced by queer anarchist subculture. And so the reason that we are going to start digging into this stuff, or continue our digging into this stuff, is because if you want to know what is heavily influencing today's real-world activists, you've got to listen to this stuff. So today we're going to take some time out and we're going to start digging into this library of content. Now, this is not a video. This is an audiobook. We're going to listen to this audiobook called Queering Anarchism. Queer meets anarchism. Anarchism meets queer. And you can see this is from the Anarchist Library. This was recorded in June of 2023. I will put the Anarchist Library link up, so if you guys want to follow along with it, you can. Put it over on Kick. Let me get that Rumble chat up. Yeah, like underground papers in the 60s is what's being said over on Rumble. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because, guys, this is the cool stuff. Reading philosophy, like reading papers written by dead philosophers isn't cool. Think back to when you were younger. The queer anarchist stuff, this is the cool stuff. This is the extreme stuff. This is the stuff that's enticing to people who maybe they've read Marx and they've read Marcuse and they've read Hegel and they've read Foucault and they've read Butler and they've read all this stuff and they're ready for more. This is where they land. They've got cool zines. They do cool things. They're heavily influenced by punk subculture. And so this is what's driving the activists today. And I think that this is significantly more influential than most people think. And we're the only ones talking about it. So who's ready to dig in? Who is ready to listen to some queer anarchism? And we're going to start analyzing it. Please go ahead and mount the like button for me. Good to see you, Brooklyn. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. Glad you were able to make it out. Guys, please mount the like button for me if you have not already. Please make sure you are following me or subscribed on whatever platform you're watching on. Let's, queer is not the same as gay. Queer, so queer is about it's about adherence to a far left political ideology. Queer is not about being gay. It's not about being trans. Queer is about pushing back on what they call normativity, which is basically normativity means societal norms. So, okay, I'm just, we have to, you're new, Grant, okay? You're new. We have to teach everyone. It's okay to make jokes. All right, let's get this party started.
Queer meet Anarchism. Anarchism meet Queer. By C.B. Daring, J. Rogue, Abby Volcano, and Derek Shannon.
Hang on. Nope, not correct. It stopped being about gay way before the 90s. Far before that.
From Queering Anarchism, Addressing and Undressing Power and Desire, by C.B. Daring, J. Rogue, Derek Shannon, and Abby Volcano. This text from theanarchistlibrary.org. The purpose of this book is an introduction of sorts, an introduction to meanings of the word. Queer politics and anarchism have not been completely disconnected on the ground, but finding texts that draw these relations can be a difficult task. We think queer politics and anarchism have a lot to offer each other, and we're excited by some of the connections being drawn between the two by people in their writing, organizing, struggling, and daily lives. So, we want to suggest that an introduction to the overlaps between anarchist and queer politics could be useful at this juncture. We also mean introduction in a different sense of the word. That is, we'd like more of our anarchist comrades to be acquainted with queer politics, and we'd like more of our queer friends to be familiar with anarchism. Again, because we think these connections can be particularly
anarchist
fruitful.
Comrades.
We hope that this collection can be an introduction in the sense of two ideas meeting one another. or perhaps getting to know one another.
Yeah, exactly. 90s all coffee shop and mag rags were filled with queer gatherings. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's where a lot of this stuff came from.
Better. As we don't mean to suggest that queers and anarchists are two distinct and separate groups. They're not. Nor do we really want to suggest that queers or anarchists necessarily always have a decent grasp of queer and anarchist politics, respectively.
He just said queers and anarchists are not two separate groups.
So, to be clear, we're not suggesting this idea is particularly novel.
Hang on. Kelly, with all due respect, your lived experience is not what matters here. What matters is what we can actually track back using primary source evidence. So everyone is going to have their own lived experience, but if I went based entirely on my lived experience, guess what? I wasn't exposed to any of this stuff until the last 4 fucking years. So am I going to sit here and say, guys, queer wasn't around until the last 4 years because based on my lived experience, I wasn't exposed to any of it? That's not accurate, and that's not what we're doing here.
There are already many folks doing this work. If we just look at the last 5 years or so, from Bashback to Black and Pink to Queers Without Borders, to name just a few, groups with a variety of theories, practices, and lives have been staking out space within the larger project of queering anarchism. Indeed, people with varying levels of involvement in each of these groups and more have contributed to the collection you now hold in your hands. We put together this volume to help draw out some of the propositions and debates within this overlap. And importantly, we tried to collect pieces that were not written for an academic audience. Much of queer theoretical writing is dense and difficult. While we feel that dense and difficult texts have their place, we wanted to provide a collection for a general audience. That said, we'd like to begin the book with some short introductions of our own. Anarchism is littered with misinformation and distortions, so any text introducing materials on anarchism might include a brief explanation.
Hang on. Toddlers do this too. They make up their own rules and think they're in charge. Well, new person who I've never seen in my chat before. You are losing to these toddlers, and you are losing badly to these toddlers. And it's my bet that because I've never seen you in my chat before, you didn't even know these toddlers fucking existed. You probably have no idea what these toddlers have to say. You probably have no idea how these toddlers are organized. You probably have no idea how influential these toddlers are in the world. You probably have no idea how badly you're losing to these toddlers. So if you want to come into my chat and dismiss these people as toddlers that are they're just toddlers trying to make up their own rules, and that's what I'm going to do to own the fucking libs. Why are you so fucking ridiculous that you are losing to toddlers? Oh, you don't care? You don't care? Goodbye. You just got banned in my chat. You want to come into my chat and say you don't care? You just got permanently banned. You are not welcome here. Go the fuck away. Guys, I wasn't going to do this, but let's just do something real quick. For people who are new. I have some rules in my chat, and I've now had to go so far as to make a fucking entire graphic explaining these rules. Number 1, you are in a class and a research group. I am the teacher and the professor in the class. You are the student in the class. We take this seriously. If you do not take this seriously, if you're going to mouth off in my chat, if you're just going to be here to own the fucking libs, if you are going to talk back to me, I will just ban you from the class, and I will not think twice about it because we take this seriously. If you are not here to be serious, go somewhere else. Number 2, do not be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult anyone else in the chat. You can insult the people we're listening to. I don't really care, but you will not insult me. You will not insult anyone else in the chat. Number 3, no whining. If I tell you to stop doing something, stop fucking doing it. Number 4, your job here is to listen. You should be listening far more than you are talking and far more than you are mouthing off. 5, if you break the rules, you will be permanently banned. You will not be timed out. You will be permanently fucking banned. Do I make myself clear? Do I make myself clear? We've just had our first banning of the day by a stupid conservative that came in and wanted to be a smartass, and now they're gone. Let's continue.
Nation of where the authors are coming from. Similarly, anarchism is admittedly a diverse milieu, not a unified movement. So while the editors of this volume don't have a strict and singular unity on the meanings and dimensions of anarchism, we do hope that briefly sketching out what we mean by the term can serve as a method of making sense of the contents of this volume for readers unfamiliar with anarchism. Similarly, queer is a contested term.
Yes, actually, this is a great question. Do the same queer anarchists run the anti-work consortium? So there is absolutely overlap between queer anarchism and the anti-work movement. I wouldn't say that the anti-work movement is entirely queer anarchist. I mean, there's just like normal Marxists. Not all Marxists are queer and not all queer are Marxists. A lot of the communist groups that we look at, they actually fundamentally reject queer Marxism. Those groups are going to get co-opted by queer Marxism at some point, but it would be a mistake to say that all Marxists are queer or that, okay, all queer people are Marxists, but not all Marxists are queer. Does that make sense? So there are Marxists who do this anti-work thing because they want the state to provide other resources for them, that are not queer. There are also queer Marxists who are involved in the anti-work thing. That's a great question, though.
In a number of different ways and requires a bit of unpacking. We don't hope to resolve large debates within anarchist, queer, and anarchist queer communities about these definitions, meanings, and so on, but rather hope to provide some insight on the pieces in this particular volume and, with any luck, provide a framework for continuing much needed discussion with this short introduction. Anarchism. Many volumes have been written throughout history explicating anarchism, and the movement has seen many historical periods of retreat and resurgence. We're living in a resurgence of interest in anarchist ideas right now. It's a common trope that after the Battle of Seattle in 1999, when a loose coalition of environmentalists, trade unionists, anarchists, feminists, and many others shut down the World Trade Organization conference, anarchism has seen a bit of a rebirth, often connected with the anti and alter globalization
1999.
movements. Similarly, the Occupy Wall Street movement was initiated by anarchists, among others, and has had a heavy anarchist involvement. And mainstream news media, in both instances, have often demonized anarchists and spread misinformation about us. This is certainly nothing new. Alexander Berkman, as far back as 1929, in his introduction to anarchism, exclaimed that anarchism has many enemies. They won't tell you the truth about it. Newspapers and publications, the capitalistic press, are against
capitalistic
it.
Press.
As such, he started his book with a list of what anarchism is not. It is not bombs, disorder, or chaos. It is not robbery and murder. It is not a war of each against all. It is not a return to barbarism or to the wild state of man. Anarchism is the very opposite of all that. Anarchism means that you should be free, that no one should enslave you, boss you, rob you, or impose on you. There's a rather long history of anarchism being distorted, and many anarchist writers have spent considerable years trying to clear up these misconceptions. The urge to destroy. Nevertheless, attempts to paint anarchism in purely peaceful terms miss out on its destructive impulse. By this, of course, we don't mean that anarchists revel in wanton destruction like mainstream media often depicts.
Queer anarchists don't organize on Reddit. Queer anarchists have their own places where they organize, so that doesn't actually mean anything.
In their caricatures of anarchists. But anarchists do hold a critique of the existing society, and attempting to hide or ignore this puts unnecessary limits on anarchism. We might discuss anarchism in terms of what it seeks to destroy and negate. The anarchist analysis of our present society, for example, has always held that capitalist property.
Hang on. Oh, capitalist property. We'll get back to that in a sec. So if I understand correct from this audiobook, they're saying that anarchism is overthrowing. Well, anarchism is the elimination of government. Now, in my heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I don't want the government to exist. So even though I actually believe that fascism is the only way we're actually going to solve the problem, and I actually do mean that. I'm not just being funny. I actually do mean that fascism is like the only solution to this. In my heart of hearts, I'm actually an anarchist. I don't want the government to exist at all. But we are in a situation where compromises have to be made, and so fine, like whatever. So the difference between me and queer anarchists is I'm an anarcho-capitalist. That means private property ownership. I fundamentally believe in that. Okay. Queer anarchists are anarcho communists. So not only do they not want the government to exist, they also want no private property. That's what we're talking about. It's not like it's the elimination of all government and the communization of all property, all homes, all land, all businesses, all resources, etc., etc., etc. Let's just go back.
This of our present society, for example, has always held that capitalist property relations
Capitalist
are
property
based on a
relations.
legalized robbery of sorts. That is, we allow, and our laws defend, a system in which things like housing, food, water, the things that everyone needs access to,
Housing, food, water, the things that everyone needs access to. They want all that to be communized. What that means is you will not own a home. You will not own land. The community, which will be governed by some sort of inter-party system, will control all the food. The community will control all the water. The community will decide where you live. The community will decide what job you have. The community will decide what resources are produced because everything is communized. You don't own anything. Everything is controlled, and you are given what the community approves you get.
in order to live dignified lives of their own choosing, are privately owned and sold for profit. Similarly, we allow the means of producing these things, and everything else too, to be owned privately. And when most of us go to work, we make the owners of the
yes. Yeah. It would look like the Chaz Zone from Seattle. Exactly. The Chaz was set up by and run by queer anarcho communists. So it would look exactly like the Chaz in Seattle.
these things even wealthier through our labor. Anarchists propose to negate this legalized robbery, the system that we call capitalism. We also live in societies in which we are alienated from the means of decision making. While we are typically rented by bosses in our working lives,
Rented
we
by
are ruled by
bosses.
political bosses elsewhere. If we go against the dictates of these political bosses, we can be beaten, kidnapped, caged, or even killed by police. And the decisions that affect our lives are made by politicians that ostensibly represent us. Anarchists argue that we should negate political representation, the institution that we call the state. Anarchism also argues for alterations to ourselves. And anarchists in the past have suggested that the process of negating our institutions also involves a process of changing our daily lives and understandings of the world. Italian anarchist Errico Malatesta, for example, wrote that, quote, between man and his social environment, there is a reciprocal action. Men make society what it is, and society makes men what they are. And the result is therefore a kind of vicious circle. To transform society, men must be changed, and to transform men, society must be changed. End quote. This means fighting against, and in some instances, unlearning relations of domination, including, but not limited to, racism, ableism, sexism, heterosexism, and so on. Anarchists then argue that we negate all aspects of power over others. The systematization of domination we often refer to as hierarchy.
Oh! There it is. Hierarchy. Socialists want to eliminate all hierarchy. Anarchists argue that we need to negate all aspects of power over others. Systemization of domination we often refer to as hierarchy. So what are those hierarchies? I make more money than someone else, therefore I'm above them. I own a nicer house than someone else, therefore I'm above them. I own a business and someone else works for me, therefore I'm above them. I am a private property owner that engages in whiteness because whiteness means the private property owner. that is above someone who is an oppressed proletarian who does not own private property. That's where you get critical race theory. I am a man, that puts me above a woman. That's where you get gender ideology. I am a straight cis white man, that puts me ahead of a black trans woman. That's where you get into heteronormativity. That's where you get into queer theory. The goal of Marxism is to level all hierarchies, to get rid of all categories so that everyone is the same.
So anarchists do, in fact, embody a destructive urge, an urge to end domination, to smash power over others, to destroy the means through which working people are robbed and exploited. This communicates a negative aspect of anarchism. Attempts to gloss over these, oftentimes for the purposes of populist messaging, miss out on anarchism's rich history of bravely combating systems of exploitation and relations of domination. But it is true that anarchism is not simply a negative project. In addition to what anarchists oppose, we might also look at what anarchists are for. It is also
Hang on. No, they're not always the trust fund kids. That is fundamentally untrue. Those are the ones that are pointed out to you by conservative media. What I need you to do is to stop making assumptions based on what you've seen in conservative media, and I need you to listen. It is fundamentally untrue. We need to, guys, please start unlearning every bullshit lie the conservative propaganda outlets have told you. This is not true. These people are not funded by Soros. That is not true. None of this is ever connected to the WEF or any of that. That's not true.
a creative urge. While it's important to acknowledge that anarchists wish to break with the existing society and contain within them a negative politics, it's also important to recognize that historically, anarchists have had a generative politics. That is, within destruction is also creation. So anarchism is also a creative endeavor.
They have to destroy everything in order to create. Does everyone understand that? Destruction is also creation. They have to, the four goals of the woke left are always the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. What does that mean? It means that in order for the left to win, they need to destabilize our entire society. They do this by getting themselves into positions of power where they cause problems. They implement laws and policies that cause problems, that cause people pain. Once people experience pain, they're like, hey, the world kind of sucks right now. Then the left says, do you know why the world sucks right now? The world sucks because of capitalism. Capitalism has created all these problems. Our society sucks because of capitalism. And if we just get rid of capitalism, then you will have less pain and society will suck less. And then they go, how about we try Marxism? How about we get rid of this capitalism stuff and we try Marxism? Want to try Marxism? Because this capitalism stuff really sucks. The only way that the left ever gets to their Marxist utopia is they have to first destroy what currently is. They are not trying to do this through electoral politics. This is not about winning elections. They don't think they're ever going to accomplish their goals by winning elections. This is why gaining political power, it doesn't fucking matter if Trump wins in November or not. It doesn't fucking matter who wins the House and who wins the Senate. It really doesn't. The Republicans could have a clean sweep of everything, and the left would still be in control. Why? Pop quiz for the chat. Why could the Republicans win everything in November at the federal level and the left would still be in control and the left would still be implementing this plan? Because the left has never, ever, 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 ever planned to do this through electoral political power. The left control all the cultural institutions. The left controls all the institutions. They have institutional power. Institutional power is more powerful than political power because institutional power does not change with a single election. There's this movie called I'm into royal things, right? There's a movie called The Young Victoria, where this is basically following Queen Victoria in her early life. And right after Victoria became the Queen of England, she was walking in the gardens behind Buckingham Palace with her aunt, who is like now the Dowager Queen. She used to be married to the king. And the Dowager Queen said to Victoria, she said, like, Victoria was talking about becoming friends with the new prime minister, and the prime minister was getting really close to her, and the prime minister was starting to make some of her decisions. And the Dowager Queen was like, no, 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 young girl. No, no, no. No, no, no. Do not trust in politicians. Politicians go. We stay. And that single line, politicians go. We stay. We meaning the monarchy in that case. But you can think of the monarchy as an institution. In the United States, we don't have a monarchy. We don't have a monarchy that exists regardless of the results of any election. But you know what we do have? We have institutions. We have governmental organizations that are run by people that get into those jobs and they sit in those jobs for decades and they can't get fired. We have universities in which it is almost impossible to fire people, almost near impossible. And even if you fire the president of a university, well, goddamn, there's a whole mess of VPs, there's professors, all those people have tenure. It is almost impossible to get fired from those positions. We have news media, we have Hollywood, we have all of these non-governmental organizations, we have lobbying groups, all of these things that exist regardless of the outcome of any election. These are the institutions that the left controls, and the most dangerous institution they control is the K through 12 public schools. We are not going to fix the K through 12 public schools through winning elections. We are not going to fix the universities through winning elections. We are not going to fix the federal government from winning elections, because even when Trump promised to drain the swamp, he didn't do shit. Have you heard Trump say drain the swamp in this entire election cycle? No, Trump's going to get in there and he's going to work with everyone, because Trump is now a moderate. Trump is now a moderate liberal that just wants to work with everyone. And we're having the unity party. Trump is running a unity ticket, guys. Trump doesn't want to fire people. Trump wants to be a uniter. You think that's going to solve the problem? No, it's not. So when they say that this is about that you need to destroy in order to create, what they mean is they have gained all the power over the institutions. They are using that power to fundamentally destabilize our society, to attack capitalism, which is specifically defined as private property ownership. It's not about crony capitalism. It's not about corrupt capitalism. It's private property ownership. Your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment rental, your ability to own a private business, your parental rights, your individual liberties. They're trying to destroy all of that, because they cannot create a Marxist utopia until they destroy our entire way of life. Does anyone have questions about that? Let me know in the chat.
Destruction is also creation. So anarchism is also a creative endeavor. This has been demonstrated historically through anarchist attempts to create alternative institutions, or, in the words of the IWW, build a new world in the shell of the old. In place of a system of private property
Build a new
and
world in the
systematized
shell of the
robbery,
old.
anarchists have proposed a social...
Look at this. What did I just tell you? What did I just tell you? Capitalism is not defined as crony capitalism. It's not defined as corrupt capitalism. It's not defined as free market capitalism. Capitalism on the left is defined as private property ownership. Listen to what this says.
IWW, build a new world in the shell of the old.
Build a new world in the shell of the old.
In place of a system of private property.
In place of a system of private property. That is what they're defining as capitalism.
And systematized robbery, anarchists have proposed a social ownership of society.
Social ownership of society.
The abolition of property altogether. This might sound absurd in a society that treats property as sacrosanct, but anarchists put forward a specific definition of property.
Yep.
Ownership claims on those things that one neither occupies nor uses. Anarchists usually juxtapose this with possessions, or those things that we use, or the homes that we live in, i.e., no anarchist wants to take your home or guitar away. This
False.
is how bosses and landlords
False.
exploit workers.
Wrong.
By claiming to own the things they do not use. or the places in which they do not live, then extracting rents and value from the people who do actually use them.
So what they're saying is, and this is one of the ways that socialists gaslight us into believing, they say, we don't want to take your stuff. Don't worry, we're not going to take your home. Don't worry, we're not going to take your home. But you know that second home that you worked your entire life to buy, that you scrimped and saved for? You're not living in that second home, are you? So you're not using that second home. That second home that's just a vacation property. So because you're not living in that second home is now ours. It's not yours anymore because you're not using it. That's what they're saying. That's what he just said. So they're literally talking about taking private property that you own, that you have paid for, that you pay for the upkeep on, and appropriating it and taking it away from you because you are not using it in the way that they deem appropriate. Don't ever buy into this idea. We're not going to take your home. We're not going to take your stuff. Don't worry about it, because they always follow it up with, we're going to take your stuff if we decide that you are not utilizing that stuff in the way that we want to utilize that stuff.
Them.
What are you doing here? What is your interest here? Because you seem to be trolling my chat. What is your interest here? No, they don't. Wrong. No, they don't. Not in this way. And honestly, I would really appreciate it if you guys would stop coming in when we're talking about far left radical revolutionary socialism and muddying things up. This is not helpful. We are not talking about you right now. We are talking about the far left. Every single time you guys come into my chat and you say, well, this is what we believe, this is what we want, this is how we define things, you muddy things up. If you want to talk about that, we can do it on my Rumble show. We cannot do it here.
In place of private ownership, anarchists put forward visions of a social system in which we produce for the needs of the people instead of the profits of capitalists. Similarly, instead of a state that stands above society, directing it, anarchists typically propose federations and neighborhood assemblies, workplace associations, community councils, and the like as coordinating bodies comprised by the people. We would collectively make
That's their
decisions
government.
that affect our lives rather than having those decisions made for us.
Hang on. They just explained their government. Hang on. Instead of having what they refer to our government now as the capitalist US government, okay? Instead of having the capitalist US government now, here's what they want.
A state that stands above society, directing it, anarchists typically propose federations and neighborhood assemblies, workplace associations, community councils, and the like as coordinating bodies comprised by the people. We would collectively make decisions that affect our lives rather than having those decisions made for us by politicians or left to the whims of the market.
Hang on.
Functions of
Fascist New World Order over on Rumble says feminism is Marxism, equality. We're not talking about equality, bro. Equality is not what Marxists want. Marxists hate equality. Marxists want equity. You've got to learn the difference between equality and equity. Pop quiz. Let's just do this. Pop quiz for the chat. What is the difference between equality and equity? Women tell me what to do and it was demoralizing, so I gave up. Oh, grow a thicker fucking skin. Seriously? Seriously? Like, I'm sorry. You men who cower at women asking you to do something that you don't want to do, do you think that's attractive to women? What fucking pussies? I'm sorry. A woman said something I didn't like and therefore I have to hate all women forever. Jesus fucking Christ. Grow up. Equity is equality of outcome. Yup. Equality means everyone has an equal opportunity. Equity means everyone gets the same. Exactly. Equity is sameness. Equity is leveling the hierarchy. In equality, if you have a world built on equality, you still have hierarchies. because you still have people, you show up. Some people are going to do better than other people. That's a hierarchy. Some people are going to make more money than other people. We, like, technically speaking, you know, in an ideal state, we live in a world with equality right now. Some people show up, they get a better job than others. The best person gets the job. That person makes more money than other people. That is a hierarchy. Equity seeks to level the hierarchy. No one is better. No one is worse. Everyone's at the same level. No one has more power. No one has more resources. Everyone's at the same level. Men are not above women. Women are not above men. There is no gender. Literally, they want to abolish all gender. Everyone is at the same level. That's what equity means. Equity means everything is redistributed unfairly. Equity means everyone ends in the same place. Equity means socialism. Equity means Marxism. I don't care if people chat in, but they need to be smart when they're chatting in. And if they're not smart, they're going to get told what's what rather quickly.
Safety and collective decision-making then would be organized through networks of participatory communities based on self-government through direct face-to-face democracy in grassroots neighborhood and community assemblies, instead of representation, police, prisons, and a word, bureaucracy. And in the place of hierarchical social relations, anarchists propose a human community based on autonomy, solidarity.
Do you see that? In place of hierarchical social relations.
Anarchists propose a human community based on autonomy, solidarity, and mutual aid. Thus, the struggle against the state and capitalism must simultaneously be a struggle against white supremacy, heteropatriarchy, and all forms of oppression.
Oh, look, those are all words that mean capitalism. The capitalist state creates white supremacy because there's a hierarchy. The capitalist state creates heteropatriarchy, which is also the gender binary, the patriarchy, because it creates a hierarchy. All forms of oppression are a hierarchy. White supremacy means capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. The patriarchy means capitalism. Capitalism created the patriarchy. Capitalism created white supremacy. This is what they believe. They believe that capitalism creates all forms of oppression because capitalism creates the hierarchy. If we get rid of capitalism, we get rid of the hierarchy.
Exploitation. Anarchists propose a society based on a highly egalitarian ethos because no human being should be granted power and control.
Fascist New World Order, that's a very sad story, bro, but we all have sad stories about our life. That is not what we're doing here. This is not a fucking therapy session where you're working out your mommy feelings, bro. I'm very sorry that those things happen to you, but that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. If you want a therapist, go whine to big tech. He'll be much more sympathetic to you because you're a man. So go whine to him about all the evil women in the world. That's not what we're doing here.
Control over others. So, anarchists argue, it must be understood that the war against capitalism must be at the same time a war against all institutions of political power, because exploitation has always gone hand in hand.
The war against capitalism is the war against all political institutions.
It must be understood that the war against capitalism must be at the same time a war against all institutions of political power, because exploitation has always gone hand in hand with political and social oppression. Replacing white supremacy, a world constructed for so-called able bodies, patriarchy, heteronormativity, and all relations of domination, would be new sets of social relations that do not arrange groups.
No, Fascist New World Order, your mommy issues are not related to what we're talking about. If you keep whining about your mommy issues in my Rumble chat, you're not going to be here for very long, bro. I like you. I want you to stay around. I don't want to ban you, but whining about your mommy issues in my Rumble chat when we are trying to listen to Queer Anarchy is not fucking appropriate. Bring that to your therapist. It is completely unrelated to what we're talking about, and you're smart enough to fucking know better. It's distracting, and I want it to stop now.
In terms of,
I need to rewind.
Replacing white supremacy, a world constructed for so-called able bodies, patriarchy, heteronormativity, and all relations of domination, would be new sets of social relations that do not arrange groups hierarchically, in terms of their access to economic, political, and cultural power. This very brief introduction is only meant to provide a broad look at anarchism, and we suggest to anyone who is interested to check out the many anarchist websites, books, magazines, etc., to find out about it themselves. Some anarchists might take issue with our portrayal above. As we said, anarchism is a diverse milieu. We want to be upfront about that, so as not to portray ourselves as speaking for the milieu when we are speaking to our own interpretations of it. Queer. Queer is likewise a contested term. Historically, it was often used to describe something that seems strange or not quite right. In more contemporary times, it was, and is, used as a slur against people who are perceived to be lesbian and or gay, particularly effeminate men. In contemporary usage, it is often used as a reclaimed sort of shorthand for various identities contained in the LGBT alphabet soup, themselves contested
Alphabet
groupings
soup.
of sexual minorities, with arguments over who rightfully belongs within those identity categories and who might be defined out. Indeed, part of why queer began to be used as shorthand for sexual and gender minorities of all kinds was due to some of these debates over who belonged, in what contexts, and how we might think about our sexual and gendered selves in ways that weren't based on identities. This explosion in writing about theory, bodies, gender, desire, sexuality, and much more is often referred to as queer theory, with a simultaneous queer politics emerging on the ground, oftentimes in similar historical moments. Groups such as ACT UP and Queer Nation, events such as the roving Queer Eruption festivals, and so on, often reflected radical changes in how participants thought about the limits of identity. These were tailed by the building of queer theory, which put identity.
No, it doesn't. Please stop shitposting in my chat. I appreciate your support over on the Substack, but your chats have nothing to do with what we're talking about. And quite frankly, you have access to all my materials. You should know better. Stop posting stuff like this in my chat.
Categories under a critical lens. Some of the explosion of queer theory is rooted in the works of French intellectual Michel Foucault. In his famous study of sexuality, Foucault found that the homosexual as an identity could be traced to the rise of sexual science in mid-19th century. Thus, the homosexual was an invention. This didn't mean that there wasn't same-sex sexual activity before the mid-19th century, but that where
Wait,
before we had an
what?
activity.
Again?
In his famous study of sexuality, Foucault found that the homosexual as an identity could be traced to the rise of sexual science in mid-19th century. Thus, the homosexual was an invention. This didn't mean that there wasn't same-sex sexual activity.
The homosexual was an invention in the 19th century? This is why I asked for there to be no shit posting in the chat, because we actually need to listen to these things, not just play into someone's fucking feelings.
Famous study of sexuality, Foucault found that the homosexual as an identity could be traced to the rise of sexual science in mid-19th century.
Foucault says homosexual as an identity could be traced to the rise of sexual science in the mid-19th century. Yeah, he's saying that the homosexual is a social construction. The homosexual was invented. Well, yeah. Well, this is also, they also do believe this. They believe that race was invented by capitalism when slaves were brought to America, and that race did not exist before that. It was socially constructed when slaves were brought to America. So kind of the same thing.
Thus, the homosexual was an invention. This didn't mean that there wasn't same-sex sexual activity before the mid-19th century, but that where before we had an activity, it was transformed through complex historical processes into an identity, complete with borders and in some cases, rigid in-groups and out-groups. Something a person does, i.e. an act, was transformed into something a person is, an identity. According to Foucault, the homosexual was created as a species of human. Our available categories of this thing that we came to call sexual orientation became based on this historical process of identity creation, reducing complex desires and relations to gender of a person, and the gender of the people that they desire. This is
Well,
important because identity is a basic
here's the thing. When you get into like the more advanced queer anarchist literature, you find out that they actually want the elimination of all categories. They don't want the category of homosexual to exist. They don't want the category of heterosexual to exist. They don't want the category of bisexual to exist. This might be why they invented this thing called pansexual, which is just all encompassing of everyone, because they don't want these categories to exist. They think that the existence of these categories is in and of itself oppressive. And that kind of seems to be what they're saying right now. It's like they're saying the category of homosexual was invented as kind of a form to limit the identity, whereas queer is a more all encompassing identity. Does everyone understand that?
part of how people come to understand themselves and part and parcel of how we become constituted as socially viable beings. These processes of socially constructing identities led to the complete invisibilization of some people, which is another reason for the development of queer theory in politics. Think about it. We are told that we are hetero, homo, or bi, perhaps 100% opposite gender attraction, 100% same gender attraction, or a 50-50 split. This is who we are. A good solid majority of our society has internalized this coding and even made oppressive hierarchies out of it. So understanding sexuality and gender in terms of rigid, easily identifiable, and heavily policed identities effectively invisibilizes and robs people who do not fit neatly into our available identity categories of a viable social existence, not just for sexuality, but also, and of course, relatedly, for gender and sex. This has meant pushing out people
Yeah, this is exactly correct.
whose
Oh
sexual
shit!
desires
Hang on. This is correct. If they eliminate the categories, they eliminate the hierarchy. That's why equity means sameness. If they just eliminate the categories, then we're all the same. There's no better or worse. There's no power structure. There's no oppressor. There's no oppressed. This is why the goal of queer Marxism is to eliminate the gender binary. It's not to groom kids, it's not to sexualize kids, it's not pedo or anything like that. The goal of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary. The gender binary means men and women. Gender binary is also called the patriarchy. They believe capitalism created the gender binary by putting men in the workplace, women in the home, doing the unpaid labor of raising the nuclear family. The reason you have non binary as an identity is because non binary eliminates gender. Non binary means no binary. And they actually want to get rid of non binary as a category too eventually, but it's kind of like a transitionary step where we're going from having the categorizations of men and women to people identifying as non-binary, as neither men nor women. And once they get everyone there, once they get the majority of people identifying as non-binary, and that is actually what they're going for, then they just eliminate it altogether, because once you eliminate gender, you have a world where there is no hierarchy. You have a world where there is no categorization.
or fluid, or whose gender practices or sex didn't make discussion of sexuality coherent, given our limited ranges of choices and self understandings. It erased people who do not experience their gender in terms of neatly constructed boxes. We needed a much more fluid, elastic, and broad category that was inclusive. And queer was, in many cases, an attempt to create that space and anti identity in a sense. Relatedly, queer was a word that could be played with. An adjective and a verb. Queer served as a space for critiquing identity and playing with theory, bodies, power, and desire that didn't need to be reducible to easy definition.
No, not according to them. Not according. In who are the hunters in lion? Take lions. When you have like what I don't like a is it like a pride of lions? Is that what a group of lions is called? Do you know who hunts in the pride of lions? The female lions. The female lions are the hunters. So no, you need to understand what capitalism means to them. You are working on your definition of capitalism. You're not working on their definition of capitalism. Capitalism means private property ownership. That's all it means. Doesn't mean crony capitalism. It doesn't mean corrupt capitalism. It is not a signifier of an economic system. So no, according to the left, and we have them on video saying this, capitalism created the gender binary. Capitalism put men in the workplace where they had access to all the power and all the money. They put women in the home, doing the unpaid labor of raising the nuclear family.
Missions. The implications of thinking about sexuality, sex, gender, and a universe of other ideas in relationship to queer theory and politics are still up for much debate. We hope this collection reflects that. Queer has also had a degree of elasticity in use, as a noun, still at times, but also as an adjective.
They want to
verb.
globalize all
Aside
of this,
from
so
a
that
noun,
won't be a problem.
Another marker of identity, queer is often used as an adjective, rather than a description of who a person is. In this way, it is typically used as positionality. That is, queer can be seen as a relationship, as a context-defined antagonism to the normal. Halperin, perhaps, describes this best when he writes, quote, "Queer is by definition whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. There is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers. It is an identity without..."
Queer is whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. That is the most commonly accepted definition of queer. That's Derek Halperin.
In essence. Queer, then, demarcates not a positivity, but a positionality vis-a-vis a normative. A positionality that is not restricted to lesbians and gay men, but is in fact available to anyone who is or who feels marginalized because of his or her sexual practices. End quote. The normative expectations that exist in society create binary divisions between behaviors deemed normal and abnormal. Whatever behaviors or desires, thoughts, etc., fall into the category labeled normal are dominant, intelligible, visible, and in many cases powerful. Other behaviors will fall into the abnormal category and become subordinate, unintelligible, invisibilized, and suppressed, repressed, and oppressed. What gets labeled normal will affect what gets labeled abnormal. If there are shifts in one sphere, the other sphere will shift with it. Queer, then, is what is at odds with the normal and lines up with the category of abnormal. Since the normal can change, so can the abnormal, the queer. This is why queer is called a positionality. What is deemed queer is not fixed. It is contextual and related to what is called normal.
What is deemed queer is not fixed. The definition of what is and is not queer can change, and it changes based on whatever is considered to be normal. Does everyone understand that? Normal, queer. If normal changes and goes over here, then queer changes and goes over here.
The reason the term queer, in this sense, isn't restricted to gay or lesbian is because many sexual practices are considered abnormal.
The reason that queer is not restricted to gay and lesbian is that many sexual practices are considered abnormal. You can be a straight person that just does some kinky shit, and you can be considered queer. I have literally been told that I'm a queer person because I'm a woman that does not ascribe to normal gender stereotypes. Therefore, I am a straight, white, cisgendered, queer woman.
Some that aren't primarily based on gender, for instance, particular ways of having sex, like BDSM, or particular ways of fashioning or arranging sexual
BDSM.
relationships, like non-monogamy or sex work. The normal sexuality in our society.
Would I recommend Judith Butler as a starting place to understand queer anarchism? Nope, not at all, not in any way. I would recommend Queer Anarchists as a starting place to understand queer anarchism.
Isn't just hetero.
Judith Butler is
a
queer
particular
anarchist.
form of heterosexuality, a heterosexuality that has a goal of a happily married couple in a permanent relationship, abiding by the plethora of norms.
Okay, check this out. They're talking about heterosexuality being defined as the goal of a happily married couple in like permanent norms, okay? Let's just listen to this again. So the normative practice is heterosexuality, a happily married couple.
Form of heterosexuality, a heterosexuality that has a goal of a happily married couple in a permanent relationship.
A happily married couple in a permanent relationship. That's the definition they do of heterosexuality. What if that happily married couple in a permanent relationship is gay? What if it's two men? Because regardless of what you think about gay marriage, this does not matter. You can have issues with gay marriage, but it does still exist. What if you have two men in a happily married relationship, in a permanent relationship with each other, just those two men, a happily married couple in a permanent relationship? How does that relate to queer? They call that homonormativity. They do not like it. Queer anarchists do not like it when gay people are married to each other in a couple relationship where they're not doing polyamory, they're not doing this throuple stuff, they're not doing any of that. They're a happily married couple in a permanent relationship that is considered to be homonormative, and they are not queer. If you are just a gay couple that is in a gay relationship and you are married to your partner and you're not doing anything else and it's just like a normal kind of thing, that is not queer. Everyone understand? Homonormative means a gay capitalist. Exactly. It means they still uphold the norms of capitalism and gender. Exactly.
Abiding by the plethora of norms that make up what is referred to as heteronormativity, a very specific type of heterosexuality that reinforces the dominance of the ascribed set of norms: cohabitation, procreation, marriage, monogamous coupling, etc. We might also then analyze queer sexual practices and gender embodiment that recognizes that hierarchies exist within heterosexuality, allowing us a frame to discuss non-monogamy, sex work, BDSM, and so on, both within same-sex relationships
Non-monogamy means polyamory. That's what they're trying to do to queer the nuclear family, is make people polyamorous.
and elsewhere. This doesn't mean that all these sexual and gender practices are experienced in the same way or oppressed to the same degree. That too is context specific and also related to other identities that people might be assigned or the class position that they might inhabit. Rather, it is strategic for all people marginalized and oppressed by heteropatriarchy to
Yeah, Sophie
organize and
would.
struggle together. And that means we need a lens through which to examine a variety of marginalized sexual and gender practices. That does not mean that heteropatriarchy treats all deviants the same. It means that there is no scarcity of liberation, and that if liberation, in the final instance, is going to be meaningful, it must include us all. Further, along with the socially constructed nature of sexuality and gender, as the intersex movement has taught us, we can also put sex under this critical lens. Sex is also put into a binary framework in our society, male and female,
There it is.
which fails to recognize
Gender
the range of
binary.
hormonal, sexual, and even chromosomal makeup that people can embody, and importantly, also ignores the coercive nature of the state's attempts to define our sexual selves for us at birth. This allows for a more holistic politics of sex, sexuality, and gender. It also gives us theoretical space to queer or naturalize assumptions about other identities. Consider, for example, people who exist in the margins of available categories for race and how it can make their existence or identity incoherent, or perhaps changing depending on the context they're in, white in some contexts, perhaps Latino in others, and so on. What might politics look like if we begin looking at identities in ways that do not treat them as fixed, monolithic, and eternal? This antagonistic relationship with the normal has also led to an anti-assimilationist ethic that often sets queer politics apart from mainstream GLBT politics. So the holy trinity of mainstream gay and lesbian politics, same-sex marriage, don't ask, don't tell, and hate crimes legislation are often rejected and critiqued within queer politics. Much of this is reflected as well in queer tendencies toward a radical politics that is critical of the state.
Queer
After all,
tendencies
the
towards
state
radical
forcibly
politics.
assigns us identity categories, and its enforcers mirror the ways the bodies and desires are policed to fit neatly within those categories. The state is also enforcer of borders in much the same way that our society demands strict and rigid borders around identity. And queer people particularly suffer at the hands of the state in its prisons.
This is conservative propaganda, and I do not play into conservative propaganda here. You've been around long enough to know this. In fact, I just explained this earlier. This is not something that they encourage. They do this is not about pedos. This is not about grooming kids. It's not about sexualizing kids. It never has been. That's conservative propaganda. You've been here long enough to know better.
Indeed, while part of this ambivalence toward the state is a common trait in queer politics, there is likewise often an ethic of working class liberation and anti capitalism within queer communities, linking up nicely
Anti-capitalism
with
within queer
anarchist
communities.
values. Another reason that a collection such as this is long overdue. This position with regard to the normal is also embedded in how queer is used as a verb, particularly in the process of queering. Since queer theory and politics came primarily out of investigations into sex, sexuality, and gender, oftentimes the word is used to connote adding a needed analysis of them to an already existing theory or set of ideas. So we might start the process of queering anarchism in this way, adding a needed critical analysis of sex, sexuality, and gender, where it is often either out of date or simply missing. Likewise, it can be used as a verb to describe the process of making a given set of ideas strange, to destabilize dominant understandings and underlying assumptions. So, queering anarchism might also refer to making anarchism strange, creating new understandings of anarchism that redefine it using insights from queer theory and politics. Queering anarchism. In this collection, one can find all these uses of queer as a noun, an adjective, and a verb, rather than trying to fit all of these pieces into
All
a
right, guys.
single.
I need to cut this short because I want to go listen to Nick Fuentes on No Holds Barred. And I'm sorry, it just got started. I want to go do it. We do have a little bit left in this to go, but that's okay because we got a whole bunch more of these to do. And I promise we're going to keep working our way through these. I actually want to take some time out when we're doing socialism this weekend on the breaks from the socialism conference to maybe work our way through some of this queer anarchism stuff. So we're just going to have to pause it there for today. But guys, thank you for coming out. I'm gonna go listen to No Holds Barred with Dalton and Paul Allen and Nick Fuentes is on there. That's gonna be a Twitter space, so you guys can find it on there. And please make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on. As a reminder, tomorrow we will be starting a little bit later because we're starting to stream the socialism conference tomorrow, and I will send out notifications about that. Please make sure you're following on Telegram, following on Twitter, all the different places if you want those notifications. Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you soon. Bye.